the morning sun broke over the rolling hills, casting long shadows across the valley. The air was thick with anticipation, a silence that spoke louder than any trumpet. Soldiers sharpened their weapons, cleaned their armor, and whispered prayers to gods old and new. In one camp, young archers pulled their bows, strings humming with tension, arrows fletched with feathers that had flown through generations. Across the field, a new kind of force assembled, a regiment of musketeers, their black powder muskets gleaming under the first rays of dawn. No one could predict how this day would be remembered. The archers, masters of centuries-old warfare, relied on precision, discipline, and speed. Their arrows had felled kings, stormed castles, and turned tides in countless battles. Yet now, they faced something unfamiliar: firearms, a technology born of smoke and thunder, shaking the very foundations of the battlefield. From the hilltop, the commanders surveyed the terrain. Young Lieutenant Tomas, barely 20, tightened his grip on his bow, feeling the weight of history pressing against his shoulders. His eyes met the glint of muskets in the distance, and a cold shiver ran down his spine. "This is it," he muttered. The first day of a new war. The field seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere in the distance, a drummer struck a single, slow beat. Time stretched, hearts pounded, and then the first spark of battle ignited. Preparation, shadows before the storm in the archers' camp. Every movement was deliberate. Men checked their quivers, tested their strings, and whispered words of courage. Old Captain Renard walked among them, his gray eyes scanning faces young and old alike. "You know the enemy's power," he said quietly, "but they cannot match your speed, your aim, your courage. Trust your training, trust each other." The young archers nodded, though fear danced in their eyes. They had been told stories of muskets, of their deafening roar, the clouds of smoke, and the terror they inspired. But this was the first time any of them had seen the weapons up close. Meanwhile, the musketeers fumbled with powder and matchlocks, loading cartridges with trembling hands. Sergeant Henry barked orders, trying to instill confidence. "Steady, fire as one, let them feel our strength." Across the valley, a sense of inevitability hung in the air. The archers had the skill and the tradition, but the musketeers carried a promise of something irreversible. The ground itself seemed to quiver under the coming clash. Young Lieutenant Tomas found a quiet spot on the hill. He drew an arrow, feeling the familiar pull of the bowstring. "This is my fight," he whispered. "I will not fail." He glanced at the soldiers beside him, each with their own stories, fears, and dreams. Today, they were bound together by one purpose: to face the unknown. The first shots, sparks of chaos, the silence shattered with a sharp whistle. Arrows streaked through the air, the archers' volleys precise and swift. One musketeer fell, another staggered as an arrow pierced his shoulder. The archers felt a surge of triumph. They had opened the battle on their terms, but the response was immediate. Muskets thundered, smoke curling into the sky, filling the valley with the scent of sulfur. The first gunfire struck like a storm. Men screamed, horses bolted, and the orderly ranks of archers wavered under the unfamiliar, terrifying sound. Lieutenant Tomas ducked behind a fallen tree. He knocked another arrow, but his hand shook. Around him, comrades were falling, some hit by arrows, others by bullets. The smoke made it hard to see, the roar deafening. Captain Renard shouted, trying to rally his men, "Hold the line, do not break. Use the trees, use the hills, strike fast, strike true." The archers adapted quickly, weaving through the terrain, firing from unexpected angles, using every trick their ancestors had passed down. Yet, with each volley of gunfire, the world seemed to shift. This was not war as they knew it. This was something new, something terrifying. Panic and maneuver. The tide shifts as the battle intensified, chaos reigned. The archers' formation fractured under the musket fire. Smoke and dust filled the air, making it almost impossible to see friend from foe. Lieutenant Tomas ducked under a branch as a musket ball tore through the trunk above him, splinters flying. Nearby, Private Alaric screamed, "They can't be stopped." He fired arrow after arrow, but the musketeers adapted quickly, forming ranks that maximized their deadly new technology. Captain Renard made a desperate decision. "Fall back to the ridge. We can't hold the open field." The archers obeyed, retreating under fire, using the hills to obscure their movements. In the midst of panic, stories of bravery unfolded. young Tomas rescued a wounded comrade, dragging him to safety under a hail of bullets. Sergeant Henry, the musket commander, encouraged his men, firing with deadly precision, his face set in grim determination. The battle became a deadly dance pose against muskets, speed against firepower, instinct against innovation. Each side claimed small victories, but the sense of inevitability grew. The world of the bow was meeting the world of gunpowder, and the outcome was uncertain. Breaking point, the turning tide. By midday, the field had become a scene of chaos and destruction. Smoke hung like a shroud over the valley, arrows littered the ground, musket balls tore through shields and armor alike. The archers fought valiantly, but the relentless thunder of muskets began to tell its story. Lieutenant Tomas, exhausted and blooded, watched as comrades fell around him. Captain Reenactment fell beside him, mortally wounded by a musket ball. "Keep fighting," Reenactment gasped, but the world changes today. The young archers pressed on, using every skill they had learned. They moved faster, fired faster, aimed with lethal precision. Yet the musketeers' disciplined volleys, combined with the range and shock of gunfire, slowly turned the tide. A single, dramatic moment defined the turning point. Tomas saw the enemy as Sergeant Henry raising his musket to fire at a group of archers trapped behind rocks. Without thinking, Tomas drew a long shot, letting an arrow fly. The arrow struck true, sending Henry crashing to the ground. For a heartbeat, the archers cheered, but it was hollow. Around them, muskets continued their deadly song. The field was losing its familiar rhythm. The era of the bow was fading before their eyes. Aftermath. The world transformed as the sun dipped toward the horizon. The battle slowed. Smoke and ash covered the valley. Bodies lay scattered, arrows and bullets alike piercing the earth. The archers, though brave and skilled, had been outmatched by the disruptive power of gunpowder. Lieutenant Tomas stumbled through the battlefield, helping the wounded, mourning the fallen. Captain Reenactment's last words echoed in his mind, "The world that changes today." The musketeers, exhausted and blooded, formed ranks to secure their victory. They had survived the first encounter with the ancient force of the bow, and in doing so, had changed warfare forever. Tomas looked at the horizon, the last light catching the edges of the valley. He realized that what they had witnessed was more than a battle, it was the dawn of a new age. The precision and elegance of the bow would remain in memory, but the thunder of muskets would shape the future. Reflection. The echo of change in the quiet aftermath. Tomas sat upon a fallen tree, gazing at the smoke rising into the twilight sky. He thought of his comrades, of the bravery and skill they had displayed, and of the unstoppable force they had faced. "This is history," he whispered. "And we were part of it. We felt the birth of gunpowder." And the end of an era. The valley was silent now, save for the groans of the wounded and the distant cries of birds returning to roost. The sun set, casting the battlefield in shades of orange and red, like the final bow of an era fading into memory. And somewhere, in the hearts of those who survived, the knowledge burned: warfare would never be the same. The bow had fallen, but the human spirit, the courage, ingenuity, and resilience would endure. The first clash of bows and muskets was over, but the story had just begun.